Yep, and this has a self-contained microphone, so we're good. I just worry about the battery, but we will, we're fine. So let me go to my input here. All right, Matthew chapter 1. We're gonna read the birth narrative according to Matthew tonight. The average modern person who thinks, maybe I'll read the New Testament, is puzzled to find on the very first page a long list of names that they have never heard of. But it's important not to think that this is a waste of time. For many cultures, ancient and modern, and certainly in the Jewish world of Matthew's day, this genealogy was the equivalent of a kind of a roll of drums, a fanfare of trumpets, a town crier calling for attention. Now, any first century Jew would find Jesus' family tree both impressive and compelling. Like a great procession coming down a city street, we watch the figures at the front and the ones in the middle, but all eyes are waiting for the one who comes in the position of greatest honor, right at the end, right? So, when you think of the story of Jesus' birth, what elements immediately come to mind? We're not necessarily confining this question to the genealogy, okay, but what elements immediately come to mind?
Not finding a place to stay.
Okay. Right.
Being born in a stable.
Being born in a stable.
Riding in on a donkey.
Manger, donkey. Riding in on Mary. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The shepherd.
The shepherds. Right.
Son of David.
Yeah, right. The angels. What did these things, what mood do they put you in? I mean, really?
Well, as I've gotten older, it kind of brings me a sense of wonder.
Okay. Yeah.
Just, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, none of you think about the genealogy? I mean, my goodness.
Well,
that's good, because neither do I. Well, of course. Well, neither do I. It just doesn't really get a lot of play. For me, the birth narrative starts after the genealogy is over. Thank you very much. It's not true. Yep, go ahead.
Thing about the views of genealogy is very important because you had to be a Levite to be a priest or to work in that, and you had to be a son in the line of Aaron to actually be the priest and everything.
Yeah.
So for the Jews, the genealogy was very important.
It's very important, right? Well, let's take a look at it. Anybody want to take a stab at it, or do you want me to?
yeah. Go for it.
All right.
We like the way
you pronounce except.
Aminadab, I can say.
Hey, that's good. All right. Oh, by the way, before I read it, this Saturday, part of the entertainment is going to be a Christmas quiz.
Oh boy.
It's gonna have some cultural questions, cultural Christmas, as well as biblical.
Cool.
Because I just didn't want to be the lounge singer up there for 25 minutes. But anyway, that's part of it. It's only part of it. Yeah.
I noticed that there are only 2 women mentioned.
There are actually 5 women mentioned in the genealogy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate
There
that.
you go. Here we go. You ready? An account of the genealogy of Jesus Christ, the son of David, the son of Abraham. Abraham fathered Isaac. Isaac fathered Jacob. Jacob fathered Judah and his brothers. Judah fathered Perez and Zerah by Tamar. Perez fathered Hezron. Hezron fathered Aram. Aram fathered Aminadab. Aminadab fathered Nahshon. Nahshon fathered Salmon. Salmon fathered Boaz by Rahab. Boaz fathered Obed by Ruth. Obed fathered Jesse. And Jesse fathered King David. So right there we have 3 women named in the first 6 verses. So hang on to that. David fathered Solomon by Uriah's wife. Number 4. Solomon fathered Rehoboam. Rehoboam fathered Abijah. Abijah fathered Asa. Asa fathered Jehoshaphat. Jehoshaphat fathered Joram. Joram fathered Uzziah. Uzziah fathered Jotham. Jotham fathered Ahaz. Ahaz fathered Hezekiah. Hezekiah fathered Manasseh. Manasseh fathered Amon. Amon fathered Josiah. And Josiah fathered Jeconiah and his brothers at the time of the exile to Babylon. After the exile to Babylon, Jeconiah fathered Shealtiel. Shealtiel fathered Zerubbabel. Zerubbabel fathered Abiud. Abiud fathered Eliakim. Eliakim fathered Azor. Azor fathered Zadok. Zadok fathered Akim. Akim fathered Eliud. Eliud fathered Eleazar. Eleazar fathered Mathan. Mathan fathered Jacob. And Jacob fathered Joseph, husband of Mary, who gave birth to Jesus, who is called the Messiah. So all the generations from Abraham to David were 14 generations. And from David until the exile to Babylon, 14 generations. And from the exile to Babylon until the Messiah, you guessed it, 14 generations. All right, now we'll start here. What names are familiar to you? There should be quite a few.
If you, I listen to the Bible, so I get tickled because I know how to say them.
And I always get upset when the guy on the recording mispronounces them.
No.
And I'm just sitting here shaking my head, but whatever. Yeah, well, you think about the first set from Abraham to David.
Mhm.
There are quite a few of those names that we would be very familiar with, right?
Yes.
Abraham and Isaac and Jacob. Judah? What do you remember about Judah? See, we just know that name because Jesus was from the tribe of Judah. But what do you know most specifically about Judah? What did he do?
Didn't he kill somebody? I don't remember.
I don't think so. I don't think Judah killed anybody. But I do know this. In the Joseph story, he stands up and he says, I will guarantee that you get Benjamin back. And if you don't, then kill me or kill one of my sons. So Judah stands up where the other brothers are, Judah actually, even when the brothers put him in the pit, Judah wanted to come around and rescue him. So Judah, it's interesting in a lot of stories in the Bible, Judah almost always looks really good in a lot of the stories. Judah. So he's kind of a hero there. So Judah, yeah. But he fathered Perez. But then he did something really stupid. He didn't kill anybody. But his wife died. And he was mourning. But he had this daughter-in-law at home of one of his sons, Tamar. And she had married one of the sons and he died. And then she married another one and he died. And so Judah wasn't going to give her this last one because, just look at it. And so she goes off and disguises herself. It sits by the city gate, and Judah says, you come lie with me. And so she does, but before she lets him leave, she basically asks him for his driver's license and his social security card. And he says, look, okay, fine, and we'll keep this as pledge for when he brings her the cost of whatever. Well, she turns up pregnant, and he hears about it, and he's furious. And he says, let's go kill her. And she says, give him this driver's license and this social security card. Tell him the man that these belong to, that he's the father. Woo, Lord. So he was a good man, but oh my, So there's that story. So yeah, what else we got here? Boaz, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Jesse.
Yeah, yeah,
Ruth.
Obed. That's the baby of it's the great grandfather. No, the grandfather of David, because Obed is his grandfather, Jesse is his daddy. Right. So, but then it gets it starts to fade. But you should know the second set pretty good either, too. If you've read First and Second Samuel and First and Second Kings, the second's all these kings, right? Yeah, all these kings, and we have Uriah's wife. You notice something about the women in this genealogy? Tamar, Rahab, Ruth, and now Uriah's wife.
I was gonna say,
No, Tamar wasn't a Gentile.
She's
Ruth
good.
and Rahab were,
Yes,
and Uriah's wife would have been.
they would have been of interesting character, and certainly Mary would have too.
Yes.
Pregnant out of wedlock, and this. See, have you heard what they're saying? That she's pregnant by the Holy Spirit. Oh, okay. You can imagine the community going around like that. They knew she cheated on Joe, and so these are questionable reputation. You remember who Rahab was, right?
Question I have.
Yeah.
She's pregnant, she was pregnant by the Holy Spirit, that's what they're told.
Yes.
Holy Spirit doesn't really come out as the Holy Spirit until Jesus
That's a good point.
shares it. So
That's a good point. That's a good question. That's a good observation. Yep. I'll go ahead and turn. Yeah, because now remember, Matthew is writing from after all of these events. And who did he most likely hear this from? Probably Mary.
Mary?
Probably Mary. Especially Luke. Because Luke's the only one that contains the Magnificat.
yeah.
And actually, Luke is the only one that speaks of the angelic visit to Mary. This is the angel coming to Joseph in a dream. Now, remind me, Jan, we have another Joseph in the Bible who has dreams.
Oh yeah, Joseph. Back
Yeah,
there in
son
the
of
Old Testament.
Jacob, right?
Yes.
Jacob.
How about that? That's interesting, isn't it? Yeah, God coming to him in dreams.
Must be hereditary.
Must be. And did you notice that the name of Joseph's father, Joseph, the father of Jesus, is Jacob? And so is the name of the father of Joseph of the Technicolor Dreamcoat.
Yep.
And now these are common names. But I've always found that very interesting. Now back to the Holy Spirit. The text itself in the Greek does use the term sanctus spiritus. It does speak of the Holy Spirit, but it could very well just be in this particular instance God's Spirit, because we are told in the very first page of the Bible what the Spirit of the Lord hovered over the waters. So there has never not been a time when God's Spirit has not been present. But in the manifestation of the third person, yeah, you're right. I mean, it happens in John at the end. Remember when Jesus breathes on the apostles and says, receive the Holy Spirit? Yeah. So there's never been a time. When the Old Testament uses the phrase Spirit of the Lord, I always take that to mean exactly the same thing as the Holy Spirit. I do.
But
Yeah.
what I'm saying is
Yeah.
that during all of these generations,
Yep.
they don't refer to the Holy Spirit.
Nope. They don't. But they do refer to the Spirit of the Lord. And to me, that's one and the same for me. Yeah, that the Spirit has come. For me, that is. But you're right. I mean, it's an interesting point to make. Jan, any thoughts? Carol has that too.
Fear.
Okay. I think it's an interesting point to be made. But we have to understand that God's Spirit has been present just as Jesus has been present from
But I mean,
creation.
They don't give him the name Holy Spirit.
Right,
I'm saying,
right,
it's not until Jesus
right.
brings in Pentecost the Holy Spirit.
He breathes the Holy Spirit on his disciples after he's been raised from the dead.
Isn't
He
that the
breathes on them.
Paraclete?
Yes, the Parakletos. But the point you're making is a good one. It really is. They don't name it the Holy Spirit. They could, remember the doctrines are developing. And so it could very well be by this point when Matthew's writing that the work that was done to Mary, you can look at that and go, that was an act of the Holy Spirit. So when the angel speaks to her or speaks to Joseph and what they would have done, and there's nothing wrong with this, it would not have been verbatim. Perhaps the angel said, and she'll be with child by the Spirit of the Lord. But looking at it from a Father, Son, Holy Spirit, Matthew could have gone back, or somebody may have edited it after Matthew to simply say this was the work of the Holy Spirit, and it doesn't make it wrong. It just
It's just an observation.
No, it's
that, during.
it's a great observation. Yeah, it is. It's really good. And I was looking at. I've turned over here to Luke too. Let me see. What does the angel say to Mary here? Oh, that's the doggone shepherds. Okay. We're not ready for the shepherds, are we, Jim? No. Okay. All right. So here is the prophecy to Mary from Gabriel. After he gives Zechariah what for and shuts him up. Here it is, right here. Okay. It does say the Holy Spirit will come upon you. Now, the holy there is added. This is a look back at Isaiah 32:15 that says the Spirit will come upon you and the power of the Most High will overshadow. So it's just another instance of the Spirit being, they would not have considered it Holy Spirit. That's why I argue against I don't argue against it. I don't subscribe to let us make man in our image. I don't read that as Father, Son, and Holy. Now, if you do, that's okay. A lot of scholars do. A lot of them do. But let us make man, that's royal language. He's let us, it's like a queen or a king would say, let us go forth, or let us make man in our image. It doesn't have to be Trinitarian because in the Hebrew scriptures, there's no who is God, how many is God?
One.
Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one God, one. And so it doesn't mean the Trinity didn't exist. It just wouldn't have been in the front of Moses's mind when he, yeah.
When they came out of Egypt, they were led by the Spirit. They viewed it as being God, but it was
Right.
actually
Yeah. A manifestation of God's Spirit. Yeah. That's good. Yeah, that's good. Now, the third part of this genealogy, I'm as lost as anybody else. All right, I know Joseph at the very end. Jesus' dad, earth dad. But as far as the others, Jacob is Joseph's father. I know Mary,
Where do we hear about Eleazar? Because that's common too. I've read that.
I don't know. But there were a lot of common names back then. But yeah, most of my familiarity. Shealtiel. Yeah, it's
What
fun.
kind of name is that?
Hebrew.
Not ours.
No.
Hebrew. Yeah. But what we have here is the first two sections. All of these are pretty familiar. The last section, and it's amazing that they have this last section. But I want to share something with you about these genealogies to kind of help you see just how beautiful everything is that's going on in this passage. There's a note here that I think that'll come in handy. Here we go. All right, Matthew has arranged the names so as to make a clear point. Okay, most Jews telling the story of Israel's ancestry would begin with Abraham, but only a select few by the first century would trace their own line through King David. Okay. Even fewer would be able to continue by going on through Solomon and the other kings of Judah all the way to the exile. Israel, remember, they had no functioning monarchy, no king, for most of the several hundred years after that. Some Israelites at this time knew, however, they knew that they were descended from the line of true and ancient kings. Even to tell that story, to list those names, was therefore making a political statement. You wouldn't want Herod's spies, you remember him, to overhear you boasting that you were part of the true royal family, right? Now, here's what's interesting about these verses. Matthew arranges the genealogy into 3 groups of 14 names, or perhaps we should say into 6 groups of 7 names.
Mhm.
The number 7 was and is one of the most powerful symbolic numbers, and to be born at the beginning of the 7th 7, which is what Jesus is clearly to be the climax of the whole list. So the markers along the way tell their own story of promises made to Abraham, of many promises fulfilled in David, and of further promises seemingly lost in Babylon. Now, all the promises will be complete in this child. And we thought we were just reading a list of names.
Right.
When in fact, Matthew has crafted this. In no respect should we even begin to think that these are the only generations, that these are the only people. To say someone fathered could be that they're their grandfather or their great grandfather, because there's many, 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 many more years from the exile to the Messiah than there are from David to the Babylonian exile. So we can't, there are some names that are probably left out, but to be grandfathered by is to be fathered by. Okay, so that's another thing when we're reading these. It's not to chop the Bible up and say you can't trust it. Oh, heavens no. It's just that shows you the artistic. Really, Matthew did a really great job with these names, and is pointing everybody from Abraham through David to Jesus, and that's great. I like it very much. Okay, isn't that fun?
Mhm.
In the ancient pagan world, there were plenty of stories of heroes conceived by the intervention of God without a human father. You need to know that. Okay? There are tons of them. Okay? Plenty of stories of heroes conceived by the intervention of a God without a human father. So surely Matthew, with his very Jewish perspective on everything, would hardly invent such a thing or copy it from someone else unless he really believed it, right? So we're going to read the narrative now. Let's read it 1:18 through 25. See what's happening here. Somebody read that.
Now the birth of Jesus Christ took place in this way, and his mother Mary had been betrothed to Joseph before they came together. She was found to be with child from the Holy Spirit, and her husband Joseph, being a just man and unwilling to put her to shame, resolved to divorce her quietly. But as he considered these things, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared to him in a dream, saying, Joseph, son of David, do not fear to take Mary as your wife, for that which is conceived in her is from the Holy Spirit. She will bear a son, and you shall call his name Jesus, for he will save his people from their sins. All of this took place to fulfill what the Lord had spoken by the prophet. Behold,
Yeah.
Behold, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and they shall call his name Emmanuel, which means God with us. When Joseph woke from his sleep, he did as the angel of the Lord commanded him. He took his wife, but knew her not until she had given birth to a son, and he called his name Jesus.
So, Carol, I have a question to ask you. You can just motion if you want to with your thing. So is his name Jesus or is his name Emmanuel?
Well, that's a good question. He's referred to as both,
Mm,
by both names, isn't he?
yeah. It's confusing, isn't it, Jan?
No,
Not at all. Okay, well, we'll come back to it. I was just
Okay.
curious. Jesus, the Hebrew Yeshua. Yeshua saved the Israelites from Joshua, saved the Israelites through his work with Moses and then after Moses leading the people into the promised land. Jesus will do the same thing. Jesus will save his people. Not in exactly the same way, but he will. So that name rings really, if you think about that name, Joshua, that's in Hebrew life, that's huge. He's after Moses. He was Moses' right hand man. So here we have Jesus or Yeshua, who, yeah, go ahead.
okay, speaking of Yeshua,
Yeah,
yeah, isn't that God?
the Lord saves.
Yep.
Yep.
So Emmanuel and Yeshua
Yeah.
are equivalent.
They are. They're different attributes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And in its original, we'll get back to this, but in its original context, Emmanuel, God with us, was a promise that through a child born in Isaiah's lifetime, that that child would be assigned to the people of Israel, that God was indeed with them. And it is filled up by the messianic prophecy. So you have a fulfillment in the day of the prophet, but you have the full fulfillment of it in Jesus's birth. Yeah. So I like that. Now, these extraordinary events bring Joseph. Now, just imagine being Joseph. They bring him face to face with a difficult decision, right? So, what personal qualities does Joseph display in the way he handles the situation?
You didn't pick up any rocks to throw it at.
No rocks. No rocks. Mary did die.
He had great faith.
He loved her. What'd you say?
He had great faith.
He did have great faith. He loved her, had great faith.
And he knew the voice of the Lord when he heard it.
He did. That's good. So when it comes to miracles, because this is a miracle, this birth, are you more skeptical or more ready to believe? And why?
I've never been skeptical.
Okay.
Just,
Yeah.
I find great peace in knowing there's miracles.
Y'all keep talking about miracles and I'll be right back. Yeah, keep talking about, are you skeptical or are you more ready to believe? Talk about that. Then I'll give you my answer.
I'm more ready to believe after recent events. Not that I doubted before, but I've seen a miracle, so I know that it's not just people making things up to make them look good or make whoever look good, but it happens. It happens.
Go back and read the Old Testament, what God has done, what he's done all through the Old Testament and everything. This was nothing compared to what he's done in the past.
It's funny, I was in a stadium at 13 and Billy Graham was on stage and that's what got me was the miracles that he spoke of. I actually believed him. I'm glad. And I felt it. It wasn't anything that happened in my life that made me believe. It was just reading about God, like you said, and hearing about it.
I recently listened to something that Jim Caviezel during an interview, and he said, it's when it goes from here to here that you truly know what's, and I don't think I ever doubted.
No,
I never felt like I doubted, but with events with Helen, I feel like it went even more from here to here.
Yeah.
I was just saying that
Yeah.
Billy Graham inferred it to me.
Okay,
He did.
okay.
I did a study and I just, lived for it at the time.
That's great. That is really great. I haven't had these experiences of the miraculous in the sense of like we see in the Bible, like a birth, a conception without a father, or healing of a blind man,
Raising.
or the woman of the flow of blood, or something like that, or raising Lazarus from the dead.
Many of us have.
I tend to be way too rational about things, even though I'm quite an emotional chap. I don't tend to be Pentecostal in the sense of their eager expectation of the miraculous and having it happen. So you could just count me kind of in the middle, but I want to be more ready to believe. I want to be even more ready than I am now. I really, because I know God can do anything, however, whatever, whenever. So I do believe that with all my heart. So maybe I'm a little bit further along than I think, but let me say this to you. Everything depends on whether you believe that the living God could or would act in the way Matthew describes. Some say he couldn't. Miracles don't happen. Thomas Jefferson, if you recall. I know how everybody holds up the founding fathers as these paradigms of Christian virtue. You've never seen Thomas Jefferson's Bible then. He had somebody go through and rip out everything that was miraculous. Gone. Just completely gone. Lazarus, healings, He's a very rational man. Very rational, and most of them were rational thinking. Most of them were deists. I'm not going to go down that road. They believed in a divine being. The language of the Constitution that we are endowed by our Creator. That's the idea. There is that it's not necessarily just the Christian God, but God in general, a divine being created everything. So that's a good step in the right direction, right? But so a lot of people just say miracles don't happen. Others that God wouldn't do that. They say if he did that, why doesn't he intervene and stop genocide? That's a good question.
He stopped a lot of things, however.
But Matthew and Luke, they don't ask us to take the story all by itself. They ask us to see it in the light both of the entire history of Israel, in which God was always present and at work, often in very surprising ways, and more particularly of the subsequent story of Jesus himself. So does the rest of the story and the impact of Jesus on the world and countless individuals within it ever since make it more or less likely that he was indeed conceived by a special act of the Holy Spirit? I think it makes it more likely. I mean, I just do. Yep.
Like I said, when you get back, you look at the Old Testament, all the stuff that God did.
Yeah.
In the Old Testament to save Israel and the way he did it, stuff like that.
Yes, sir.
Having a virgin birth was nothing.
Yeah. It's good.
Well, I think that you can also see miracles in our own history. As far back as you can read about it.
Yeah.
The Cornwallis and George Washington in Yorktown. Washington won because Cornwallis was prevented by a storm to go out and get recruits.
This is true. Yes, sir.
And how many slaves were free?
Yeah, it's just a storm. It was coming either way.
History, but I'm just saying there's just pieces and pieces. I like history of it. There's just pieces and pieces of it.
Yep.
It's not all guns and that kind of war.
Yeah.
But
Right.
I like listening to genealogies that people have gotten out of DNA. I love the history. And the miraculous things that comes out of that is amazing.
Yes, it is.
You talk about World War II, the times that Hitler, for example, he could have probably pushed back the Normandy invasion but he was asleep. They wouldn't wake him to bring his panzers in. At the end of the
Interesting.
war, how close was he to having a nuclear bomb?
Probably pretty
No,
close.
right, he was very close. That's why they went after all of the scientists and stuff that worked on that project to make sure that we had as many of them as we could, and Russians got everybody help.
Right.
But you know,
Yeah.
it's only just when you think about it, it could just easily gone the other way,
Yeah, could have.
but because it didn't, you could almost say it's a miracle.
Well, when you think of miracles, just, it's not virgin birth, but a baby.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's true. That's true. So what difference do we think it makes, if any, that Jesus was miraculously conceived as the Son of God? Because we are in the minority. Now, I'm not going to say laity of the disciples' churches. I'm not going to say the people in the pews. I'm not pointing this at them. But among the clergy, your minister is in the minority of ministers who affirm the literal virgin birth
It's right
of
here. on-
Jesus.
It's right there.
But, and we say that's one of the, is the virgin birth, is it an essential? Or is it one of those things that, now they confess Jesus as Lord. All right, let's be clear about this. They confess Jesus as Lord, but they cannot, because of some of the reasons that I mentioned above. They cannot affirm the virgin birth, but they confess him as Lord and proclaim him.
What of the quote unquote Son of God?
Yeah.
Do they profess him as Son of God?
Yes.
Well,
How can they do that?
Pre-existent from the beginning. Always Son, Trinity. Always Son. The Trinity has existed from time.
so just
Yeah,
some
I'm
chick
real-
out of nowhere, whatever, and she's pregnant.
Mhm.
Doesn't, I don't buy it.
Well, they would just say that Joseph was his dad. They would just say that Joseph and Mary got married. They had sex, and guess what? So this Jesus of Nazareth there was something about him, So, I mean, I'm not arguing for it. I'm just saying, so we have to ask her, does it make any difference that he was miraculously conceived as the Son of God? Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's okay.
I just want to say that a lot of people here was actually raped by a Roman soldier. That's how you.
Yeah, I've heard that story too.
I've heard that too. Let's see how we're doing on time here. Oh my heavens to Betsy. We're supposed to get through chapter 2 tonight. That ain't gonna happen. All right.
I gotta ask this. Betsy who?
Ross.
Okay.
There you go.
that was a good answer.
Yeah, there you go. It was the only one I could come up with. The only one I could come up with.
I wouldn't
If I'd
have.
have said Betty, I would have said Frocker. There you go. Right. There you go. All right. Okay. So let's at least get into the Magi here. Okay. And then we'll pick up next week. And by the way, next Wednesday night, no choir practice next Wednesday night, but we are going to have Bible study next week. Okay. And we'll finish up with this.
When are we
Actually,
having the quiz?
huh?
When are we having the quiz?
Saturday
At the luncheon.
at the luncheon.
Oh, at the luncheon?
Yeah.
Oh,
It won't
okay.
be as hard. So, and Linnell's not going to be there. So
So we have a chance, huh?
you have a chance. And we're going to give away prizes to the top 3 scores. We're getting serious. All right. So just hang in there. All right. Now we have 60 coming. So that's good.
We had more than that. We now have 63.
We're good. The Trinity are
Very
coming.
good.
All right. So here we go. After Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of King Herod, wise men, or magi, from the east arrived in Jerusalem, saying, "Where is he who has been born King of the Jews? For we saw his star at its rising, and have come to worship him." When King Herod heard this, by the way, he's the current king of the Jews, he was deeply disturbed, and all Jerusalem with him. So he assembled all the chief priests and scribes of the people and asked them where the Messiah would be born. In Bethlehem of Judea, they told him, because this is what was written by the prophet. And you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, because out of you will come a ruler who will shepherd my people, Israel. Then Herod secretly summoned the wise men and asked them the exact time the star appeared. He sent them to Bethlehem and said, go and search carefully for the child. When you find him, report back to me so that I too can go and worship him. After hearing the king, they went on their way, and there it was, the star they had seen at its rising. It led them until it came and stopped above the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were overwhelmed with joy. Entering the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother, and falling to their knees, they worshipped him. Then they opened their treasures and presented him with gifts, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And being warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, they returned to their own country by another route. I like another way. By the way, there were 4 angels that night, and one was not allowed in because he brought fruitcake. Angel stood at the door and said, get out. Now, Matthew is the only gospel writer who tells of the visit of the Magi. Now, I want you to as just these few minutes we got left, because we don't have long, think of Christmas pageants, movies, and other portrayals you have seen of these events. What familiar elements are and are not part of Matthew's account? See, that's the interesting thing. And it'll frustrate you to no end, because we just
All the animals.
well, like okay,
Shepherds.
The angels singing to the
but just this visit
Well-
to the Magi.
It says, behold, wise men came.
Okay, so
It doesn't
wise.
give a number.
Yes, it doesn't give a number. How do we get the number?
from the gifts.
From the gifts, right? There was probably a great contingency of Magi who came
And more
across
than
the
one
desert.
bringing gold. And
Yeah, could have been, right?
They all had their entourage.
Yeah, I'm sure they did. And they're,
Protection too.
yeah.
I wonder if there was any room in the inn by then.
No, but see, that's another part. We have kicked a fictional innkeeper
Yes.
up and down the road since these events.
Okay, I gotta say this,
Go ahead.
that in all probability, it was a lot more sanitary for Mary to give birth in the stable than in a crowded inn-house where you don't know what diseases are abounding.
There you go. It very well could have been.
And by the time these guys got there, they weren't there.
No, they weren't.
That's right.
They had to be in a house.
Right.
Right.
'Cause
The
Jesus
Magi
was
did
about
not
to-
come to wherever Jesus was birthed.
Right.
And how do we do it? How do we set the scene out on our
With the
lawns and everything? They're there. How about upstairs? There they are. They're coming.
Yeah.
They're coming.
They're not
They're on their
there
way.
yet, but
No, they're not there yet, but they're on their way. All right. But we do that.
Well, it's what we came to assume it was 2 or 3 because of them. Harry tried to kill all the babies.
Yes. We assume he was as old as 2 and also the dating of Herod's death to, I think it's 4. Actually, Herod died. When did he die? He actually died in 4 BC, which throws the calendar out of whack, because Herod's death date is listed as 4 BC in the historical record. So Jesus was most likely born in what we would call 6 BC. And then because Herod did die, remember the priests made miscalculations when they were putting the calendar together. So, but anyway, but you think about all this stuff that is that we see in the pageants and the innkeeper. My goodness, it wasn't an inn. It was most likely a home of a relative of Joseph. And You know, of course, and that's not in Matthew's gospel either, is it? That's in Luke's gospel. So, but we kicked this fictitious innkeeper down the road, and there was no innkeeper. It was most likely that, and we come up with stable. See,
It
and
makes a nice story.
it's most likely a cave, or where the Joseph's family kept the animals out back behind the house. So but you know, let's not rob the kid of the chance to be a star by saying there's no room at the end. Speaking of stars, there you go. But we're going to talk more about this because I want to leave y'all with this. Keep in mind, Herod the Great had no royal blood, and he wasn't even fully Jewish. He wasn't from the line of David, but he was simply an opportunist military commander whom the Romans made into a king. He was their puppet to further their agenda. Okay, and he was also a very disturbed man. So,
Yes.
yep.
Also, the king of Judea after Hezekiah.
Yep.
None of them were in the line of David. They were put into into possession by whoever the emperor was or whatever.
Yeah.
Empire.
Yeah. Yeah, just sent there to keep things going according to the way that the ruling country wanted it done.
It's also one of the last part of Matthew's genealogy.
Mhm.
You don't know any of it.
Very well. Very well. Yeah. Okay, we'll continue with the Magi next week. So, and we may get into Luke's gospel too. But thanks everybody who've been here. Thanks, Obi, for joining us. We hope those of you that stream this, we hope it's of help to you. And we look forward to seeing you again next week. Everybody have a wonderful rest of your evening. Take care. Okay, just a second.